DiMaggio, Billy Joe Johnson, Alexandra Bergman, Eugene Hine, Sarah Mullenhoff, Tracy Eddington, Shayna Bidal, Ryan Murr, and Dennis Youngke. We have new hires. We have Jennifer Pass as a building nurse and administrative assistant. She comes in at step 3 at $21.86 an hour. New hire, long-term subs special ed teacher, Heather Breeze. She's at a BA1 step 1. New hire, long-term sub grade 2 teacher, Barb Shepley, BA1 step 1. New hire, social worker, Tiffany Ogren. She's at MA step 7. We have an FMLA leave request for our second grade teacher, Drew Sinke. We have contracted employee services for our school psychologist, Patrick Garrity, at $70 an hour, and declaration of the surplus items from the industrial tech, which is a MIG Miller 300 ACDC multi-function machine, 2 of those, and 2 Stick Arc Airco 250 amp ACs. And I have no idea what any of that is. But anyway, they're going to surplus them and replace them, I guess, with more efficient and safer IT, industrial tech tools. So, so I'll entertain a motion to approve consent. Motion to approve. Sandy, motions, is there a second?
Second.
Molly seconds. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, review and act on the 2021-2022 assurance of compliance. Superintendent Evenson.
Chair Polly, members of the board, good evening. This is an annual action item. Each year, all of our staff members review handbooks and policies. An example policy would be our harassment and violence policy. They do review different mandated reporting policies and have several trainings that they're required to do. And each year we have to certify with the state of Minnesota that we have completed those trainings. So this is an action item that just certifies as a board that we have completed that work. We have submitted that, I think on the 6th of October already to the Department of Education.
Okay. The report is included in our board packet, so any questions for Superintendent Evenson? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the assurance of compliance.
So moved.
Ryan moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Connie seconds. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. This is going to be a quick meeting, you guys. Review and act on the 2021-2022 World's Best Workforce, and I believe we have Dr. Yamlin with us.
Hello, everyone. So this is just a review of this year's 2021-2022 World's Best Workforce, and I'll just highlight some of the key details. So the purpose under Minnesota Statute Section 120B11, school boards are to adopt a long-term comprehensive strategic plan to support and improve teaching and learning based on the guidelines of the World's Best Workforce. So I will go through and highlight some of the key components of the plan. So the first is the World's Best Workforce legislation includes 6 areas for schools and districts to address. So having clearly defined goals, this is really the foundation of the plan, is these goals that are created. And then a process for assessing student progress, a system to review staff effectiveness, quality instruction and curriculum, effective educational practices, and a budget aligned to learning. So then based on input from the district's data team, advisory committee, building MTSS teams, administrative team, and the strategic plan, the created continuous improvement goals focus on the following 5 areas, which are outlined in World's Best Workforce. So each of these areas, a district has to create a goal to support. So all children are ready for school. All 3rd graders can read at grade level. All racial and economic achievement gaps between the students are closed. All students are ready for career in college. All students graduate from high school. So we'll go ahead to the goals. So the following goals were created by the specific buildings and district-wide data and leadership teams. The goals are specific to World's Best Workforce that are listed here. Beyond these goals, though, keep in mind, buildings also develop their own building goals that also support World's Best Workforce, but they're not included within World's Best Workforce. So for the Jordan Elementary School, all children are ready for school. Our goal for this year is at least 60% of all kindergarten students will score at or near proficiency for kindergarten readiness skills in math and reading based on FastBridge Spring 2022 data. Another elementary school goal, all third graders can read at grade level. At least 60% of all third grade students will meet or exceed proficiency on the reading MCAs in the spring of 2022. For the district as a whole, all racial and economic achievement gaps between students are closed. So reading and math goal is the same goal, just in two different subject areas. The district will decrease the average achievement gap between free and reduced price meals and not free and reduced price meals by 5% based on spring 2022 MCA testing. And all students are ready for career and college. At least 90% of students will create a personalized learning plan by the end of their 10th grade year. And the last high school one, Jordan High School will remain above the 92% in the 4-year graduation rate cohort model for the 21-22 school year based on the state AYP report. So those are the specific goals that are categorized under World's Best Workforce. So the developed goals are the fundamental focus of the required World's Best Workforce plan, with the ultimate legislative goal of making sure school districts are providing Minnesota youth the education that will lead to actually creating the world's best workforce down the road. Consequently, the district also creates a strategic plan that illustrates how we accomplish our determined goals. So the rest of this plan focuses on the additional areas the district should focus in order to achieve our world's best workforce goals. So review staff effectiveness, quality instruction and curriculum, effective educational practices, and a budget aligned to learning. So I'll just highlight some of the key details as a part of this. So for instruction and curriculum review process, Jordan Public Schools uses its curriculum and program review system to not only review curriculum and program areas, but to also provide continuous improvement for teaching and learning in the district. So in Jordan, the review process is divided into 2 cycles, an as-needed formal program review cycle and an implementation and continuous improvement cycle. So we are constantly evaluating curriculum to make sure it meets the needs of all learners to continue growing and achieving. Under professional development and effective educational practices, the overarching district focus and goal of professional development is to support and improve instruction for all students. So our purpose is to continue offering targeted and personalized professional development, supporting strategic goals and commitments. So this year's 21-22 professional development implementation primarily will focus on teachers will implement teaching strategies to support inquiry and project-based learning, and student support and counseling staff will implement SEL strategies across the district to support social and emotional learning for all students and staff. So at the same time, professional development also focuses on supporting licensure requirements and specific individualized learning opportunities for teachers and staff. So the next one is budget aligned to learning. So in Jordan Public Schools, funds are primarily aligned to learning and student support, which is evidence of the district's commitment to using resources where it matters most. So the district's priority is to allocate dollars to areas of direct student support, and that's what's displayed in red, to ensure the budget is aligned to student learning, which our budget is. Teacher equity and staff effectiveness. The World's Best Workforce legislation focuses on ensuring all students have equitable access to excellent teachers. So in the fall of 21-22 school year, 14% of the district's teaching staff was considered inexperienced, which just means that they have not been teaching for more than 3 years. 3% of the teaching staff was teaching out of field, and 75% of the teaching staff held advanced degrees based on hiring and employee data. So consequently, the district did not find any gaps in relation to equitable access for low-income students, students of color, or American Indian students. So part of the teacher evaluation process, we use a teacher evaluation process that supports teachers in becoming highly effective in working with all groups of students. All non-tenured teachers are evaluated by licensed administrators at least 3 times throughout the year. And then to ensure we continue to hire and retain high-quality teachers, the district follows a specific teacher evaluation process. So what that process is, that just the district believes that professional growth is an ongoing process, not limited just to third-year observation. So continuing dialogue with principals and colleagues through activities such as peer coaching, peer reviews, administrative walkthroughs, and PLCs all contribute to the professional learning community that supports teachers in this process. And lastly, a part of World's Best Workforce is continual engagement with district stakeholders. So as a part of this focus, the district has established the Curriculum and Technology Advisory Committee. The committee provides feedback to the school board and district administration regarding curriculum and programming. So the Curriculum and Technology Committee reviewed and provided feedback on this World's Best Workforce Plan last Monday. So that's really just kind of the key points and highlights, and I know it was linked for you all, of this year's World's Best Workforce goals, an overarching review of the district's process to continually support those goals. Questions?
I know some of us heard this, last
Yep.
Monday night, but I think maybe for the public, I know that 92% grad rate is kind of probably seems a little low. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that number?
Yep, so it's kind of deceiving because how the graduation rate works is Jordan's graduation rate is dependent on any student that's ever been in our district. So if we had a student in our district for maybe a month in 10th grade, that student leaves our district and ends up going to a different district and ultimately doesn't graduate, that impacts our graduation rate. So when we figure our graduation rate on our graduating seniors, a lot of time it's 100%. But when the state's report comes out, it looks a little bit different because it does account for our student population from grade 9 to 12, even if they left our district. So,
Because
yeah.
I think it's important for the public to know that our graduation rate of our kids that we have is near 100%
Yep.
almost every year,
Yep.
so.
I was just going to ask that, so that means that you said if they've ever been in our district, but you're really talking about from 9th through 12th grade.
Yeah, it starts in 9th grade.
Right, so there's
Students
not from
enrolled
kindergarten.
like day 1 of 9th grade
Got it.
through, and if they're enrolled and leave and ultimately don't graduate, that impacts our rate according to the state.
So we do this every year.
Yes.
The headings, like the yellow headings, are mandated by the state or
Yeah.
part of the legislation, right? And
Yep.
so then our job is to set goals related to that,
Yep.
and then we submit that to the Department of
MD.
Education.
Yep. Yep. And then every
We get
year,
feedback, or we get nothing, never heard? Okay.
I have never heard in the
Right.
3 years that we've submitted it. We do submit progress too. So that's what I'll talk about next, progress on the last year's goals. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Then we can review last year's goals. So look back at last year. So per state legislation, districts and charter schools are required to submit a World's Best Workforce annual summary report. So that's what this is. What gets submitted looks a little bit different because it's more in a survey form. And in addition, districts that participate in achievement and integration programs also have to submit an annual report on those goals, which will also be a part of this. So here's our progress from last year. So our first goal for all children are ready for school was that at least 51% of all kindergarten students will score at or near proficiency for kindergarten readiness skills in math and reading based on that FastBridge Spring 2021 data, and we did not achieve that goal. Our rates were showing 20.56%, and so that's a continued goal this year is to make sure that readiness skills are improved. So all third graders can read at grade level. At least 60% of all third grade students will meet or exceed proficiency on the reading MCAs. That goal is not achieved. Again, we are above state average, but we're still not where we would like to be as a district. All economic and racial achievement gaps between students are closed. And our reading and math goal was to decrease that achievement gap between free and reduced price meals and not free and reduced price meals by 10%. We did show a reduction, but it wasn't the reduction that our goal was set at. We had a 2% and 4% reduction respectively. All students are career and college ready, so our goal is 90% of students will create a personalized learning plan by the end of their 10th grade year. We did achieve that, and we had 100% completion of personalized learning plans. All students will graduate from high school. Jordan High School will remain at above 92% in the 4-year graduation rate cohort model. our records showed that we were at 97%. So we did achieve that goal. Then achievement and integration. So the purpose of achievement and integration for Minnesota programming is to pursue racial and economic integration, increase student achievement, create equitable educational opportunities, reduce academic disparities based on students' diverse racial, ethnic, and economic backgrounds in Minnesota public schools. So these are 3-year plans. So Jordan's plan began in 2020, and we're hoping to be at mastery of our described goals by the spring of 2023. And this, if you qualify for achievement and integration, these goals also get reported at the same time as World's Best Workforce. So we do receive achievement and integration funding, and that is because Shakopee Public Schools has been identified as a racially isolated district. So then Jordan qualifies for achievement and integration funding due to our status as an adjoining district. So that's how we get this funding. So we do have some missing data from last year due to COVID. But other than that, one goal, which I'll talk about in a second, we are on track to achieve all of our goals. So the first goal is an integration goal, and this goal is actually the same goal in Shakopee and Prior Lake, because that's the integration piece, being bordering a racially isolated district. So students in grades 6 through 12 who participated in a caring and committed conversations will self-report an increase in their level of comfort with initiating and maintaining positive relationships with students different from themselves. And we had baseline data in 2020 to get hopefully a 4 out of 5 on a 5-point Likert scale. Because of COVID, we could not do this integration goal last year because we couldn't mingle across districts. So it's inconclusive at this time. However, we do have 2 planned caring committed conversations for this year for joining Shakopee and Prior Lake. So we will be able to report on that. Achievement disparity. So integrate MTSS Tier 1 instruction, focus on best practices that honor diversity, promote integration skills, and support academic achievement from the novice level beginning in 2020 to 70% of teachers self-reporting proficiency by the end of 2023. And we are on track, so our PD is continually focusing on that MTSS Tier 1 instruction, so we are on track to meet that goal. Achievement disparity, hire and retain a K-12 equity specialist from 1 FTE in 2020 to continue through 2023, and we do continue to employ a full-time equity specialist, so we are on track. Our next integration goal, hire and retain a K-12 culturally responsive pedagogy specialist with a professional development focus from 0 FTEs to 0.5 through 2023, and we do employ a part-time culturally responsive pedagogy specialist. And lastly, implement elective guided study halls, reach grades 7 through 12, focused on academic achievement and social emotional learning, from no reach offerings to 5 reach offerings by 2023, and we are on track to achieve that goal as well. So, questions, a lot of goals, a lot of information, but we are on track for all of our achievement and integration.
Is there, so the kindergarten readiness obviously was low. Was that a step backwards last year? Or?
We had a different measurement the year before, so it's hard to compare. But kindergarten readiness is always, it depends on so many things between preschool and home environment and things like that. So we try to base the goals based on the data that we do know, but it's hard to kind of gauge that. But we do want the goal to make sure that everybody is kindergarten ready. And if you look at kind of within the plan, some of the strategy is to continually achieving that. It's really focusing on that preschool alignment with kindergarten, really focusing on kindergarten readiness programs, our Kickstart to kindergarten programs, and things like that. So it's hard to compare, but yeah, it's not where we want to be.
And when we're setting these goals, is there structure or guidance to that, or how? They seem pretty aspirational, right? When
Yeah.
there's a 40% gap between last year's performance.
Yep. So when setting the goals, you try to look at previous data, but you can't always look at that because you're comparing apples to oranges because it's a different group of students. So you look for norm trends in the data to try to see where our students are. So for our 3rd grade goal, that's the first time that they ever take an MCA test. So we can look at the norm data from previous years, but again, it's a different group of kids. Last year, obviously, we had COVID and learning loss and things like that. So you try to gauge it based on the data that you are getting. Now, 3rd grade's the first year of MCAs, but we do have FastBridge that kind of sets up some of that data showing us where our students are performing before then. So it's really just looking at the data, analyzing, working with the teachers who really know the kids to try to set that goal. And we also want to set rigorous goals so that we keep pushing and moving. So to keep, shooting for the stars. Yeah. Yeah.
I think the obviously the goals not achieved numbers is kind of tough to see, but
It is.
it's, it's just the reality of what COVID did, unfortunately, to our kids, and, yeah, so.
And we did see a dip across the state, like everything predicted that we
Yeah.
would with COVID learning loss. And, even the amount of kids tested last year was down, which actually does hurt numbers overall. So, yeah. But it shows us where we are, so we can use that data to move forward. So it's not fun to see, but it does give us a baseline to work from.
Any questions, comments?
Thank you.
Okay, this is, thanks, Erin. This is an action item. So, I will need a motion to approve the workforce, World's Best Workforce Plan to be submitted.
So moved.
Sandy moves. Is there a second?
I second it.
Connie seconds. Discussion? Thank you for your work on this. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Student School Board Representative update. Mr. Visner.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Just a couple of, it's as reported here, but last board meeting, the suggestion was made that we would like to continue to have a student member of the school board. So Ms. Evenson and myself met and talked about different parameters and different things. We had the students complete a Google form if they were interested. We had a few students that were interested, and from that, I culled it down to one person that I met with, talked with her about all the different pieces, shared the parts about you need to be at meetings, it's not all glamorous and da-da-da-da, and she was still interested. And so I'd like to recommend that Kaylin Friari be the new student school board representative. Kaylin's a junior. She's involved in tennis, speech, band, and youth and government. I think that was really her linchpin to ooh, this looks really cool and something I want to do. And she's just excited about that opportunity to serve. So with your approval, then myself and Superintendent Evenson will get back together with her and kind of lay out the process. One thing I did share was that we would look at only one meeting a month versus two. I think that was really a big struggle for a teenager who's trying to get their homework done, have a social life, maybe have a job, all those other things. So I shared that we would want her at this meeting, and if there was a chance that maybe there's something at a workshop meeting, that we would invite her, but just know about those pieces. So at this time, I would recommend that we approve Kaylin Friari for the student representative.
Can you spell her last name for
Yep,
me?
F-R-I-R-Y, I-A-R-Y.
Okay.
Sorry, like Friar, and then a Y.
Okay, Kaylin?
Kaylin, C-A-I-L-A-N.
I am.
I-N?
Yep.
Nope, I misspelled it.
Okay.
And I
Sorry,
even looked
I-
on, I
Perfectly
even,
aware.
yes, I
Great.
apologize for that.
Good, so then we would bring her on at the, probably, well, if she's available at our
November.
workshop meeting, well, no, we'll be talking about that, so
Yeah.
probably at the November meeting, so.
Okay.
And I know we talked about the process and everything, so I think that this'll be good, so. Great, so I'll entertain a motion to approve Kaylin Friari,
Friari.
thank you, to be our
Friari.
student school board rep.
Motion to approve.
Molly, is there a second?
Second.
Sandy seconds, discussion?
I just
Okay.
want to say, I think it's a good choice. Kaylin is actually also, for youth and government, she was elected by her peers in statewide election. For youth and government, she is the Secretary of State, which is by far the highest office that any person from Jordan has held. So, sorry, proud delegation to that right here, but I think that she's very responsible. Very responsible, so I think she'd be a very good choice.
Great, good. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The next item is our band and choir, and then, oh, they are here, yay.
Ms. McKnight and
Thank
Mr.
you.
Burnside
So I
can come up
invite
too.
Ms. McKnight and Mr. Burnside up to the microphone.
Between the two of them, they have been busy preparing for a choir concert next Monday, the first of the year, which feels like, even though we started the school year earlier, feels like it's way too quick.
Yeah, yes.
And Mr. Burnside spent time today outside at cross country and at soccer, along with his students performing. So thank you to both of them for that, and then finding time to come here for this too. Obviously, this is a tricky subject and something that, you know, looked really good when we approved it the first time, and then life continues to happen all around us. And so just, you know, a little on the background, and I'm just going to read off of this. The board approved a band and choir overnight trip in the spring of 2021. It was agreed that the trip to New Orleans would be a great musical and cultural experience for our students. Since the time of the approval, there have been some challenges with COVID-19 and the variants around the country, and specifically in New Orleans. And then there have been some concerns with Hurricane Ida, but that looks like we're going to be okay in that area. We sent a letter out to families on September 27th, and it's linked in there, and I know that all of you received that at probably a much earlier time from Superintendent Evenson also. Letter explains the facts of the trip as we know it right now, and a part of the letter was a survey to families. So in that survey, question number 1 was, at this time, New Orleans, Louisiana has the following mandate: proof of a COVID-19 vaccination and mask required for indoor activities. With these current restrictions in place, do you plan to have your student attend the trip in March of 2022? And so there's the responses. 65% or 86 students said yes, 29% or 38 said no, and then about 8 people said they needed more information. So then we asked a second question, and the second question said, would your student go to a different destination that does not have a vaccination or mask mandate in place at this time? And there was a note, local, state, and city mandates could change before departure. And the responses were 70% or 93 students said yes, they would like a new destination. No was 11%, and then a new destination, more info needed, was 25, or about 19%, just not quite sure how they felt about that. So that's the information that was given to us. So based on that, I shared a couple of different options: continue to plan and prepare for the board-approved trip to New Orleans, or plan a new destinations, not knowing if COVID requirements will shift at any time prior to departure or arrival at that destination. Then I was asked by Superintendent Evenson to give you what we thought, and we've met a lot about this, and they've met even a lot more with the travel agency and the travel company. And so a recommendation at this time would be to continue planning and moving forward with the trip to New Orleans. And here are the 4 main reasons that we thought. Number 1, it's not a curriculum requirement, so students are not required to go on this trip. The musical and cultural value of the trip can't be matched with another trip that we looked at that they haven't already done in the last, or students haven't done in the last like 8 years. We don't know if the requirements would change for other potential destinations, and this is probably the biggest one for me. We just don't know if they would change and could lead to more students opting out at a later date. This in turn would cause the cost to rise. So right now, let's say we have 80 kids that know they're going to go. If for some reason we are going to go somewhere else and 80 students said they're going, that's basically 2 buses. If suddenly 3 weeks before we left, this place shut down or tightened up and required vaccines, required masks, whatever it might be, and students bailed out, well then that cost for everybody else would go up significantly. Let's say 40 people say they're out, we're down to 1 bus, but we're paying for 2 buses. So that's one of the big concerns. And then lastly, we already know and have planned for the restrictions, and it will only get looser, or knock on wood with that, but it should only loosen up going to New Orleans. It shouldn't tighten up. And so that's something that people can make a well-informed decision on. Where right now you can look and say, okay, here's the plan. We're, 120 days out maybe? 120 days out. We know that this is probably as tight as it's going to be, but it could loosen. With other ones, it's loose right now, but it could really tighten up, and it could change people's whole opinions on going, which is the hard part, or the part that we're concerned about. So I guess at this point, I'd maybe step back, and if there's other things that we've talked about that maybe I haven't hit on that you'd like to share.
As Jeff said, the third point is probably the biggest one. With moving forward with the New Orleans destination, the hope is, again, not going to everything, not banking up, the hope is that things would loosen up before we go. And it's far easier to add students to the trip later. In the reverse scenario, if we went to a different destination, one kid bails, because there's new restrictions, that could cause a chain reaction. And they're 55-person buses. That's one of the biggest costs. I called the travel company yesterday just to confirm, like, hey, what's the price fluctuation that could happen with, let's say, we're just barely onto a second bus, and he said you're looking at anywhere from $100 to $350 per ticket that could fluctuate. So, and being that it's a 912, it's 912 for band and choir, there's multiple families that have 2 or more students that are going, so that we're thinking about those families a lot. So, this allows us to move forward with and to at least plan on doing something. The other thing I'll add, at least the seniors, they were part of the Winnipeg trip that didn't happen. We had to pull the plug days before departing because that's when COVID hit. And I know they're really excited to just travel someplace. And that's been the big energy, and to try and make it happen for the most kids that we can. This seems like the best plan thus far. I think that we're all in agreement. If we didn't even have to approach the COVID question and the vaccine issue, that would be the ideal situation. But here's where we're at. So.
That's a good point that I didn't cover, was that we can add students on at a later date if things loosen up. That's a good point. Obviously, we'd probably encourage those students to continue to raise funds and prepare for that, and not sign up yet, but we could add some more. Okay. Do you have a drop dead date on that?
I know that as we proceed through the process, like the calendar, for the refund process, there's less and less money that you get back unless you purchase. Their company's partnering with an insurance company, gets them canceled for any reason, travel insurance. But as far as adding kids, if it's like the last trips that we've taken many trips, we can add them like up to a month before. So, so it's really close.
And the other thing that I would highly recommend having a child that was supposed to go to Peru or somewhere else on a Spanish trip, and these other trips, going to Winnipeg, is really to encourage our families to buy the insurance. And I know most people don't want to buy the insurance, but I just think at this time, buying the insurance is well worth it. So I guess we would open up for questions from the board at this time.
This is probably an obvious question, but I'm assuming flying is out of the question because of the big instruments that need to go to New Orleans.
We always, every time we take a trip, even though we've always gone with the bus option, we always ask, hey, what would the price tag be? Usually flying adds about $400 per person, and it's not because the flight itself is necessarily more expensive. It's when we get there, we still have to get around wherever we're at, so we still have to rent the buses.
Yeah.
And then we're at this sounds dramatic, but we're at the mercy of the buses that are there as opposed to the ones that we know here, and then that the travel company's partnered with. So, so it adds a significant price tag. And in that name of trying to get the most kids, we've opted for trying to keep things low.
Other questions? So, the recommendation to me, to stay with New Orleans, the itinerary that you have laid out is just an incredible experience for these kids. And having been there myself, I'm very pleased with all the places you're planning on taking them. My one concern is, if I'm reading this correctly, we have 38 kids who probably wouldn't go, probably because of the vaccine mandate, I'm guessing. And we would certainly honor their families, respect their families' decision for that. So I guess that's my only hurt.
I guess.
And hopefully things may loosen up by then and change. So.
Another piece of information, when I called the travel company yesterday, because we're running all of our payments through their system, and I said, how many accounts do you have registered? And he said that there's 105 accounts and 102 have put money down. So that's actually slightly higher than the survey results, which is kind of confusing to wrap around. So, so there's that, and then I saw something else, but it'll come back. So there's that. Oh, the no, didn't come back. Sorry.
Do, like, if they get the religious exemption or any of those, would that, they still?
That's a good question. That,
Or like negative testing, something. That's
Yeah,
not
I
just
mean,
a
or what
disease.
if they've had COVID and they have the antibodies? You know, who knows what the world will be like then? So just something to keep in mind. Sandy?
I guess I was gonna say that, every year, I think there are students who don't go. I doubt that all 38 are not going because of the vaccine.
Right,
There's always
right.
gonna be people who aren't going to wanna go for various reasons.
Right.
They may already have a spring break trip planned.
Mhm.
They may have, they may not feel like they have the finances to do it, which is also, that hurts my heart too.
Right.
But I know there's various opportunities for fundraising as well. But I know that just in general, they just may feel like that isn't a thing they want their child to do. It is an amazing opportunity. I've been to New Orleans as well. I love that they're gonna get to go. I hate that I'm not going, but that's okay. I just wanna point out that it's not, it may not just, there's a variety of reasons why those 38 people may not be saying yes.
Good point, thank you. Thank you, I appreciate that.
The funding piece, I can say that any student that's ever tried, like, has said they want to go, and the family have said they want to go, we've found a way to either get them assistance or just, we've found a way to make it happen. So, because that's a big thing. There's, quite honestly, it's a lot of time to plan these things. It averages out to be about an hour a day for the year leading up to the trip, and that's not woe is us. But we want a lot of kids to go because it's a bigger payoff for, like, it's just a better experience for all. And so we try to get as many going as possible.
This could be not completely accurate information, but according to the City of New Orleans website, August 16th, proof of vaccination or a negative PCR test will be required. So there may be a chance that there's a testing provision there.
I think with the testing, I think the testing provision, the one fear is are we going to be able to get them? So it's going to take 2 days to get down there, so
Sure.
they'd have to have one before they leave, and then we'd have to find them at least 2 different times. We're going to have, I think.
Yeah.
Because it has to be within,
72 hours.
72 hours prior to access.
yeah. So there would be some logistics to it that would be pretty tricky.
But it is a possibility if push comes to shove. No?
Could be. I mean, I don't think we want to say no to
No,
anything, but I
yeah.
also,
Right.
I think that's why the one thing that we feel with this recommendation is that we're giving the worst case scenario.
Sure.
If that's the best way to put it. Like,
Mhm.
this is as tight as it's going to be, and we're hoping that, over the next 120 days that things will loosen up. Hopefully in the next 60 days, then our students could have opportunities that maybe they don't have right now.
Because we're seeing numbers, especially in the south, that are just plummeting, so fingers crossed.
I think the problem with the PCR test, it takes between 1 to 7 days to get the results back. So
Okay.
then the kids
So
would
the
test
first one
there,
would-
and then
yeah.
they'd be sitting in the hotel.
Yeah,
And if they don't get the results back for 7 days, well, then
Right.
they spent their whole trip in the hotel, so.
So
gotcha.
the PCR is the high level.
Yeah, you could do a rapid PCR, but it costs $200. That one's not free, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, further discussion or questions? This is an action item, so. Is it an action item since we've already approved it?
I guess that would be your decision as a board. If you feel that you don't need to take action since it's already approved, you would just tell them that. If you feel you'd like to take formal action to reaffirm their recommendation, you can decide that as well.
Okay, what's the wishes of the board?
I would like them to go forward.
So you want formal action from the board, just to reinforce?
Yep.
Okay.
So that the parents
that-
know what our goal is. We want the
Sure.
kids to get to go on this trip if it's healthy and they're gonna be safe. They've put a lot of time in it, not just these people, but the kids have practiced since they were in 5th grade to
Right.
get to go on this trip, and our goal is to give kids opportunities, and this they'll be learning outside the classroom and getting to experience the bigger world. So I say we should make formal action saying we want to go forward with this process.
You'd prefer formal action from the board, I'm guessing. Yes. Okay. Further discussion or questions?
I guess I just want to say, and with this, with the seniors in particular, and I'm not saying that just because I have a senior, but I do think that they have been, they didn't get to go to Winnipeg. This is sometimes the only trip that kids may actually be able to go on that is a long trip away from their family. And so I just think that it's a really important thing to be able to do.
Yeah. And I think, we have to try, right? We don't have a crystal ball. I can't think of a better musical destination for a band, so.
Disney World is pretty cool. It wasn't really a musical destination, but it was still pretty cool.
Make sure you feed them well, because it's not just music.
Oh,
in
yes,
New
right.
Orleans.
I expect to see them on NCIS New Orleans. Background. Well, maybe not. No, at the end when everything is good and they're playing jazz.
And just to reaffirm, and I know that Logan and Katie and I have had a lot of conversations about this, and we know that this isn't easy. And we know that this isn't a simple thing. And when it comes down to it, after multiple conversations, we just feel like the best thing is to be as tight as possible. And, give the worst case scenario, and hopefully we can, as you guys ask questions about being hopeful, we're hopeful that it can be loosened up and we can give more opportunities for students. We would hate for it to go the other way and suddenly we go from a trip of 120 kids down to 42 or something like that. And just see that plummet and have kids' spirits broken again because they couldn't go on something. So we'd rather have them know on the front end than the back end.
Good. Thank you. Any further questions? If not, I will look for a motion.
So moved.
Sandy moves to affirm moving forward with the New Orleans trip for the band and the choir for 2022. Is there a second?
I second.
Connie seconds. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
I need to connect with you two soon too about Jordan Dazzle, so just put that in your back of your head. It's going to happen December 4th. So I'll connect with you though. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving on to board reports. Do we want to talk about that or the Duck Cup thing, our next meeting?
That's the first thing on my report.
Oh, okay. There you go. I'll turn
Yeah.
it over to Superintendent Evenson.
All right, so happy October meeting. I can't believe it's the October meeting already. The first thing I'd like to share is something that I've shared recently with all of you, and that's the Duck Cup Memorial Group. We actually had them at the middle school this week and the high school this week as well. I sat in on the middle school session on Monday morning, and it was really a great discussion for kids and talking about mental health and talking to your trusted adults and, asking for help if you need help. And it's a really important message. Many of you might remember last school year, we offered a session from Duck Cup Memorial, and it was virtual, of course, last year. It was one of the most well-attended sessions that most people could remember that parents attended in recent history. I think we had over 120 parents that joined that session. And our district has partnered with 7 school districts, and that includes Le Sueur Henderson, TCU, Belle Plaine, New Prague, Waconia, Shakopee, and of course Jordan. And on October 25th, which is the night of our next work session at 7 p.m., they will be holding a session called I Am Fine. And, this is offered to anyone that would like to attend, either in person or virtual. It's going to be at the New Prague High School. And we'll be communicating this broadly out to our families as well. And it's really, I think, a helpful session. Mental health is an important thing for this board as well. It's a focus area to make sure that our kids have all the tools that they need, as well as our staff and our school community. And this will be a helpful session for families to know when things maybe aren't fine and what they might do for next steps to support that. And so the question I brought forward to Chair Polly and I'd like to talk about tonight is, for our work session, would you like to meet at New Prague High School and attend that session in person? Sometimes being in person, they're more powerful and you can ask questions after. Or would you like to meet here in the boardroom and stream it virtually? Either is, great, but that will be the agenda for our work session that evening.
So I'll open it up for discussion. So are you saying we're not going to have a special session? We wouldn't come back here?
Correct. That would be
That
the
changes my
that would be
thought.
the entire agenda.
Okay.
Just as a little background, most of you probably know who's on staff from now here. And the Duck Cup is kind of a affiliation he has with he and his wife lost their son to suicide. And they have the nickel open. And so the Duck Cup is some friends of theirs that also lost a child to suicide. And so they have partnered and supported each other in benefits to promote mental health and suicide prevention. And so they've brought NAMI in to the school to present to the kids. And
Yep.
like Superintendent Report said, the Duck Club group came in this week and stuff. So I personally think that it's important for us as a board to be lifelong learners, and I think it's important for us to be visible and to be examples to the community. So I would like to see us go in person to support this, and it's a regular meeting of it. That would be my preference.
Sounds good to me.
I'm fine with that. I thought if we were going to go down there and then come back, it wouldn't be a very efficient use of our time. So
No, there are no other items that
Okay,
evening.
then
That would be our sole
I'm-
focus.
I'm fine with that. I've attended several of their presentations. There was one a few years back where they had a room set up where there was like various paraphernalia and you had to identify what was what, and it was very well done and very powerful. So, and I've attended other ones. I attended the one last year as well. So it's a great. They do a really nice job.
That was the drug one a couple years
Yes.
ago. And I don't know if you guys saw that, I think it's especially timely that elementary kids get the most of
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah.
So, mental health is something so if that's okay, then we just,
We'll move
plan
forward
a
with
meeting up
plans.
there at 6:45 or something.
It starts at 7.
Starts at 7. I'll send out communication and details so everybody has that, and we'll work through all of that. So, yeah, thank you. I have 2 other quick updates. Just supporting family communication. So we recently had a nice conversation with a group of school community members, and one of the points that was noted that we have an awful lot of new parents, of course, and sometimes families just aren't sure who to reach out to when they have a question. And so Elise and I are working with our admin team, and we'll be updating our website to have some FAQs and handy tips for families when they go on the site and look under the parent section. So they have that resource so they know who their first point of contact might be if they have a question, because again, trust is a byproduct of good communication, and we think it's important that we equip them with all the tools that they need as well. So if they have questions, they can get those answered very smoothly. The last thing that I would put out there is for board members and community members and staff that might be interested. The Math Standards Review Committee is beginning with the Department of Education on the academic standards. The deadline is actually on the 15th, this Friday, for people that might be interested in serving on that committee. There are 10 full-day sessions. It's a rigorous commitment, but if you're interested in math and love lifelong learning, this might be the committee for you. All of those details can be found on the Department of Education website. And if anybody needs help finding that, just reach out to our district office and we'll get them hooked up with that.
That's open to anybody in the
Yep.
community, not just
Yep. And they're always looking for great board members too.
that have 10 days time.
Over 10 short days, yeah.
That's a lot, that's all my vacation.
And that concludes my report.
Questions for Superintendent Hanson? Okay, all of the other administrative reports were attached. If anybody has any comments, questions about them, now would be the time. Otherwise, I just have one. I want to give a shout out to Stephen back there. Thank you for the tech grant of $260,700 for getting that grant for us, and which amounted to 650 new Chromebooks. So that is news to you, Stephen. Thank you. Okay, moving on to school board member reports, committee reports. Budget finance, we want to do calendar review, city school.
Yep.
We met. I don't know if you have more detailed notes, but just kind of shared updates on developments in town. Don't know what we shared on our end, really.
Yeah, we gave them a back-to-school update. They shared kind of some of the, city development things, some of the construction updates. It was a pretty brief meeting, but, yep.
Okay, community ed and rec. Lauren and Sarah, neither of them are here. I don't know if they met or not.
I believe they did meet. I am not a part of that group, so I'm not sure what their topics were.
Curriculum is meeting next Monday, I believe, Hope, correct? I think-
Curriculum, we just met.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, I'm thinking policy, never mind. Yes, never mind, okay. Curriculum, yes, we did meet.
Mm-hmm.
Best workforce, yes. Okay, facilities,
Yep, facilities met.
we did meet, yes. We met with a representative from
Cross Anderson.
Cross Anderson. Talk about that?
I was gonna let Molly, but she's.
I
looking.
forgot my note.
It's kind of part two with Kraus Anderson. They did a study with like really wild dots and really geotagged issues in the school. But nothing that's terribly surprising. We have an elementary school that is old and in need of repair, a middle school that not so much, and a high school that's kind of in the middle. So just trying to figure out, what we can do without the M funds and where we may have to look for other funding in the future. Just what our timeline is.
So it was a really interesting, informative meeting. And we did talk a little bit about laying out timelines and just seeing where we're going to go.
They affirmed that building stuff is not getting cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very thorough study. Good for us, so. And that was included in the bid that we had gotten last year, or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago,
Yep.
whenever it was. from
November
them.
2019,
So there
I
was
think.
not extra costs involved with that, so. Okay, meet and confer. I
It's
believe
coming up, right?
It's
Yep.
coming up, yep. Negotiations, we met for the 4th time, this week. Negotiations went fine. We have our 5th meeting, set up for a couple of weeks. Yeah, they gave their counter to our counter, so we're just moving forward slowly, and it's very amicable. It's going very well. Policy it's policy that meets next Monday.
I was gonna say,
Oh,
I don't
okay.
have that on.
Oh, okay, so I can pass.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, APAC, Sandy?
We went, for our last APEC meeting, we went to, and I'm not going to get the name. right.
Hokakata tea?
Yes,
I think.
the cultural center, and it was beautiful. I mean, I learned a lot, and I consider myself fairly decently educated on Native American history. I mean, not obviously great, but there was a lot, and I think there was a lot more to do that we didn't get even to touch on. But we had a really great guide who was in charge of cultural artifacts and collections, and he was not collections in terms of like the actual museum collections, and he just was really great, and that was basically what our meeting was. It was just being there and experiencing that, because our kids are going to be able, have they gone there, or?
We have some grade levels that have been there and gone there, and we're exploring maybe how we might be able to utilize that facility for future APAC events, maybe Eagle Feather Ceremony, and that in the future.
It's a beautiful place. It'd be a
It
great
is.
place to have it.
Did you get down to the museum
No,
down below?
we weren't able to go down there, so.
That is phenomenal.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a
what Renee was.
temperature controlled room. The technology is just unreal.
I want to go back.
It's a beautiful facility.
It is.
Good, thank you. Booster Club, that's Sarah and Lauren too. Ed Foundation, Connie, you wanna cover that one?
I don't think she was on. I was the only one on
Oh.
that one. Yep.
Okay. Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So they talked about kind of finding some different ways to donate online versus GoFundMe versus PayPal, but those have a lot of fees. So they're going to reach out to like the Booster Club and see how they have people donate online. They were talking about the open houses, how middle school was kind of difficult because only maybe 1 or 2 people stopped at the booth. The QR code for people to scan worked really good. They need to evaluate the locations for where they have their tables set up for future. They did collect $722 with Pass the Hat at the football game. They are looking to do it at a different time next year, like between first and second quarter, because they felt like halftime lots of people got up and leave the stands. So they're hoping for between first and second quarter for next year. They also really appreciated that you dropped kudos to the Jordan Education Foundation at the board meeting. They said that really was helpful to them. They had 2 student applications for student ambassadors for Jordan Education Foundation, so they were probably going to choose both of them because I think it was a freshman and a junior. I think what it was. So then they were going to have them keep going through, so which would be really helpful. And then what else did they talk about? They talked about how they can't raffle off things like sports passes because they're not enrolled in the Minnesota Charitable Gambling or something like that yet, so they need to get enrolled in that before they can do raffles. But yeah. And then they were going to be creative with how to use the Lori Schmidt Memorial Tree because that was given to them. So yeah.
Thank you. Legislative, that's just an ongoing process, really nothing too exciting there. Yeah. MSHSL, nothing too exciting there either. The coaches' shortage of referees and stuff has caused some angst and shifting of games. That's causing games on not regular game nights and stuff like that, but that's because of the shortage.
I think that actually really affected our Jordan Bell Plain game. Many people did not know that it was being played on Thursday.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? What do you mean, football game? I'm like, it's Jordan Bell Plain. So,
Yep. Scale?
yep.
Probably the most interesting scale meeting I've ever been to. We spent 90 minutes talking about the legalization of marijuana, which is interesting, just because you had city, school, sheriffs, diverse group of leadership, I guess. So this is an issue that I have been paying no attention to through COVID. I didn't even know that it was a thing last year. But last session, there was some sort of loosening of the medical marijuana requirements. Look it up, I don't know. And there was a proposed bill that did not pass. It passed the House, I think, and not the Senate. So we spent most of the time, the plan sponsor actually presented, went in the ins and outs of it. It would permit you to have 10 pounds of marijuana in your possession, 2 ounces on your person, all kinds of other governing body, like just interesting. But so in December, there's going to be a part 2 where it's actually focusing on the, issues for law enforcement, school districts, that sort of thing. So it was interesting. Definitely diverse viewpoints in the room. But well, and I should say too. So after they went over the bill, Scott County Public Health had some pretty good information, studies of what they've seen in Colorado, some of the challenges they've had. So
Yeah.
stay tuned.
I think that's an issue that's gonna be before us for quite a while.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be a big issue
big
next legislative session. So
Yeah.
certainly get involved if you feel one way or the other on that. But there, I mean, there were, I guess, relevant to education. The bill last year had a youth education component where something in the funding would fund a mechanism for drug education, I guess, at some point in the middle school, high school.
To be continued. SEAC, Connie, anything from that to you? Okay, Southwest Metro, our meeting started with a tour of the facility. Connie was there and Sarah was there. And Lauren. So it was quite a facility. Yes.
Beautiful facility. It's huge when you start walking, but I think the opportunities for the families for our district, it's just amazing. It's just amazing, and to think that it will cost nothing extra, and they'll be safe is a big thing, and they'll actually make money by renting out the property that they don't need. So it was very, very nice. They do a good job.
At our meeting, let's see, a couple highlights. The alternative ed program has 70 kids. They've got over 300 kids enrolled in the cooperative online initiative. I'm not sure how many of those are from Jordan. Do you
We
know?
had like 40 some, 42. Yeah.
Okay. Down to about 30?
Okay.
Okay, okay. Adult ed has really did a big comeback. The ABE program was, because of COVID last year, was really down, but this year they've got over 180 registered, so that's good. Care and treatment, the day treatment programs are going well. Career Tech, they've added a couple of new things. Lauren and I did the bus tour on that Friday of that week. We started over here at the Minnesota Valley building, and then from there we went up to Bonnie and toured their building, which is kind of mirrors this program here, but it's on the north side of, of the district, so those little ones don't have to travel so far. And then we went to the 401 building in Chaska and got to see the new programs and the career tech programs that are going on. So that was really interesting. And then I had to leave, but Lauren stayed on for the rest when they went to New Beginnings and toured the other sites. Otherwise, the CAP agency building where Southwest Metro was their headquarters. It looks like they'll be closing on that facility the end of November, if that date is still, I believe it's still. And then the plan is that building is gonna be raised, and they're gonna build something else there, so. Yeah, other than that, things are going well at Southwest Metro, so any questions about that? Okay, then on to board reports. Molly, I'll start with you.
Don't have really anything.
Okay. Connie?
I want to give Mr. Perkel kudos for the Hall of Fame. Every year, I think it's just such a humbling. I've pondered how we could get that Hall of Fame into an auditorium and have the kids hear the accepting speeches and have somebody say, I was a Gopher. We had 2 people say, I was a Gopher. To see the love of those girls softball, that they've been apart for 40 years, and it was just amazing. It was really humbling and honored, and they are our people. They're us. And he did an awesome job, and it was a great combination of people, too, that received the awards. Some of the people that were presenting the awards were just about as entertaining as the people that were getting them. So it was a very, very, very well put together night. I'm very proud of the group of people that were inducted and their families. It was a nice night, and too bad it rained on their parade, but they stuck it out. They stood out there at halftime in the rain, and they did a good job, so it was worthwhile.
Thank you. Sandy?
I don't really have anything except for, I did attend the health and safety meeting.
Oh.
So, but it was very, very brief, but, basically there was a health and safety check in the kitchen and it sounds like everything was really good. They're expecting, I don't know what the status is of the serving line. At that point, it was still on order.
Still on
They were
order.
hoping for MEA, but I'm guessing, is it not?
We haven't heard.
Okay,
Yep.
so, but it's basically gonna convert it so that it's gonna be the same as the middle school and the high school, so that kids will be able to slide their trays right along and have sneeze guards. And so, just hoping that it will come in soon, but like everything, that kind of things are on back order, it's hard to get anything from anywhere at this point, so, but that's basically, we talked about more cleaning protocols and extra disinfection for COVID. Let's see, I think that was pretty much it. Fire Safety Month, is October, that was pretty much, and our next meeting is December 2nd on a Thursday. So, did I miss anything?
Nope, you got it.
Homecoming week was awesome. I wasn't able to go to the Hall of Fame celebration, but I made it to the football game for the first half. Then went home when it started raining and got to experience the huddle cam, which is amazing. It must be a few generations newer than the one in the gym because I mean it was outstanding. So
Great.
that's pretty cool. The community should know that all of our home football games are being streamed on YouTube.
Great. The only thing I have is kudos to Kelly, our new nutrition gal that's working with the Girl Scouts and the gardens. I think that's really great. And I want to give a shout out to the our superintendent and the admin team on pulling off a really great homecoming week. It was a lot of fun and went really well. And like Connie said, the Hall of Fame for me was it was emotional. And to hear Major General Nash, who has literally traveled the world and held the highest position in the National Guard, and to hear him talk about that the most pride he has is the fact that he graduated from Jordan School, and talking about his experience here was just powerful. And then Jerry Schmidt, who I didn't even know this, is a very gifted author, and she's had over 40 books on the national bestseller list. She goes by Laura Childs, is her pen name. And I think one of the most fun comments of the night was Sarah Cheka, who went to school between my girls, so I knew Sarah quite well. She talked about that she wrote poems every time they had she's a great basketball player. She wrote poems for each of the games, and then she would, pump up the team by reading the poems as she was going to the games. And then when Jerry Schmidt, the author, got up, she was like, wow, it's really impressive to hear a basketball player writing poems. It was just a great time. And Jim Trapp, of course, who come up, Jim Trapp. So it was a great night. And Fulton Weckman, who was the first D1 player from our district, graduated with my husband. So that was really fun. So just great start to school. Thank you that things are going well, and hopefully we'll keep it going. So with that,
Motion to adjourn?
second? Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks.